Prime Minister Narendra Modi has laid the agenda out for the summit, writing a newspaper column published in the leading Indian dailies. And in this article titled Taking G20 to the Last Mile, Leaving None Behind, the Indian Prime Minister talks about three important changes in the post-pandemic world order. First is the shift away from GDP-centric to a human-centric world. Second is recognizing the importance of supply chain resilience. And finally, the need for multilateralism and reforms in the existing global institutions. Prime Minister Modi says India's G20 presidency has played the role of a catalyst in these shifts, keeping the needs and aspirations of developing countries in focus. The Prime Minister talks about democratizing climate action, equitable technological benefits, women-centric growth and dismantling global barriers. And with this, the Prime Minister lays India's agenda for the G20 summit. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu is among the first state heads to arrive in India ahead of the G20 summit. In India, he met a range of investors, securing nearly $14 billion of pledges from Indian investors. Separately, Nigeria also approved a $1 billion partnership agreement with the Indian government to help the Defence Industries Corporation of Nigeria attain 40% self-sufficiency in local manufacturing in 3 years. Meanwhile, preparations are in the final phase in New Delhi as other world leaders will start to arrive in just a few hours from now. Various security teams ranging from bomb squads to airspace protection teams are conducting their final drills as India gets ready to play host to allies, friends and leaders from 20 of the most powerful economies in the world. For more on this, we're now being joined by Principal Diplomatic Correspondent Siddhant Sibal from New Delhi. Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start by talking about the key highlights and in the agenda that's been laid out by the Prime Minister. As I mentioned earlier, a human-centric approach, recognizing the importance of supply chain resilience and also the need for multilateralism and reforms in the existing global institutions. What can you tell us about this, Siddhant?
Well, these are something that India has been focusing on. Multipolarity has been the buzzword for Indian diplomacy. In fact, the Indian Prime Minister just a few hours ago at the India-ASEAN Summit talked about the need for multipolarity. Now, supply chain resilience is something that has been much talked about. Indian External Affairs Minister, since COVID pandemic, has been talking about diversifying the need of supply chains. But the significant outcomes of the article which we have seen today in leading newspaper is India proposing Global Biofuels Alliance. Now, this is for the first time, perhaps the Indian Prime Minister has talked about such an alliance, and he has significantly talked about that how India proposed the International Solar Alliance in 2015. That was a joint India-French project, and it has really taken off with almost 100 countries now participating in it. Now India has proposed Global Biofuels Alliance, and this is another initiative by the Indian side to fight the scourge of climate change.
Absolutely, Siddhant. And as I mentioned earlier as well, the Prime Minister also talks about democratizing climate action, equitable technological benefits. Can we see any consensus on this over the course of the summit?
Well, when it comes to negotiations, they say the best negotiations is when nobody is happy, but India wants to make sure that the global south and large portions of the world will be happy with the outcomes here in Delhi. Just one day left for the summit to start. Now, when it comes to issues related to climate change, this is a summit that is going to focus a lot on climate change. In fact, India has invited UAE, which is the chair and the host country for COP this this year and will be hosting the summit as well. But largely, if we talk about climate change, India domestically has taken several steps when it comes to focusing on renewable energy. Internationally, it's the International Solar Alliance. And when it comes to consensus on fighting climate change, this is an issue that all countries will be on board. There might be divergences between the G7, Russia, and China on issues related to Ukraine, but climate change is something that impacts everyone, and everyone would like to see actions being taken on the ground. In fact, 2023 is set to be the hottest year, and this is a headline which we almost now hear every year. So the hottest year is something that is dangerous for mankind.
Right. Well, Siddhant, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this.